we have with us Dr. Adams Stephen, who is the technical advisor to the Transport and Aviation Ministry, and William Saulamin, Chairman, Civil Society Consortium on Community Accountability Service Delivery. Gentlemen, good morning and welcome to Wake Up. Really.
Good morning.
Good morning and thanks for having me.
All right. Let me start off with Adams for obvious reasons.
Yes.
Now, on social media, many people saw, pictures, videos of boats, ferries, and many people have applauded the move, and the ministry saying these ferries would come into operation in 3 months' time. Now, first off, what really led to us having new ferries? Because I'm sure you've seen the political rhetorics around, from bridge to ferry and all of that. So take us through the initiative of having new ferries.
Yeah, every day we have about 3,000 people moving from that part of Freetown, because I consider that part as part of Freetown, to this part of Freetown, from the north side to the south side, as I would like to call it. And there is this huge hindrance in transportation between those two areas.
Right.
We have to go across the estuary. And currently, we have two ferries operating from Government Wharf and Targreen, and they are very, very unreliable because of maintenance issues, because they are quite old now. Probably you do not have fixed schedules. People would go there and there are no ferries available. The alternatives are you have to use the water taxis like the Sea Coach, and those are like prohibitively expensive for ordinary Sierra Leoneans. They are asking like 500,000 or 500 leones now or 550 leones now to go across. So the ministry, which is charged with the responsibility for ensuring that there are all forms of transportation within Sierra Leone, land, air, and sea, took upon themselves and created this initiative. They said this should not be the normal. The normal should be, if you want to go to this other part of Freetown, you should be able to go there at any point in time. So the ministry went out and did this arrangement with this Turkish company. The company's name is Negma. This is what they do in Turkey. They provide ferry services across rivers like the Bosphorus and along the rivers. So this is what they do. So the ministry went and had an agreement with them and said, come to Sierra Leone, provide services that is a replica of what you are doing here in Istanbul. That every hour there is a service, either from Freetown or from Lungi part, going in either directions. And those should be on fixed schedules.
So it's actually not bought, but the services of the providers are.
It's not bought. It's not a government-owned. It's a private entity.
Right.
So we are going into agreement with them and say, come and do business here.
Yeah.
Our interest here is ensure that the service is there and it's dignified. We want Sierra Leoneans to travel in dignity. If you go to Kisi right now, the terminal there, if you see how Sierra Leoneans travel in the existing ferries, and those who take the alternative of going by the local boats, if you see the conditions in which they travel, it's less than dignified, as I would say it. So we want people to travel probably in style as they do in Europe.
So let's look at the services they would be providing. You just talked about how it should be dignified. But at the end of the day, the existing ferries we have, those, using those ferries are complaining every day of the situation or the conditions of the ferries, that either it is slow, at some point it gets stuck in the middle of the sea, and all of these things. So it's becoming super scary for people using those ferries. And of course, going for the alternative, so for us the poor people, we dare not. So how then do we ensure, what are the mechanisms being put in place to ensure that these new ferries, when they go into operation, then those things we're lacking as Sierra Leoneans, the dignity we've not been enjoying in crossing to and from Freetown to Lungi, we start enjoying them in the new ferries?
Yeah, that's exactly one of the objectives, as I was telling you. We don't want to provide ferries managed by government or managed in a way that we get back to where we were.
Yeah.
I even heard that at one time, one of those ferries from Kisi just drifted, like it couldn't withstand the wind going across.
Many times.
Yeah, it drifted down.
Many times.
Because before it started sailing upwards
Right.
to their destination. So this is a private company. This is what they do. This is their business. They have countless ferries out there. They have the experience. How we ensure that this happens is clearly stated in the contracts that when you are coming here, we are not inviting you just because we want you to come and make money. We are inviting you because we have these problems. This is our interest. We are not interested in, we are giving you the opportunity to come make money, but to ensure that you provide this service. And what they do, they are bringing their engineers. They have the expertise. We are even in conversations with them to expand the business beyond just ordinary service provision. We are in conversation with them to have probably their own shipyard, for instance, so that they can maintain their ferries.
Right.
So, and they have that the capacity and the capability as well.
So, as we encourage them to come and give us dignified services, how are we creating that enabling environment for them to thrive? They're coming to make money, but again, sometimes even the pricing, how do we determine VAT? They would have to, looking at yes, they would definitely have to pay tax to government because they will not just be feeding off us. But then how do we ensure that, the environment is attractive and there are some incentives for them to operate pretty well?
So absolutely there are incentives for them to come. We did not give them tax-free facility.
Right.
They will be paying all the government taxes. We ensure that they will hire Sierra Leoneans. The overall general manager is a Turkish. The deputy general manager is a Sierra Leonean.
Right.
And all other, in fact, they are bringing only one Turkish staff. That's the general manager. Except for the technical people, the people operating the ferries, they will stay for a while. And while they are staying, they have to train Sierra Leoneans so that these Sierra Leoneans know how to operate these ferries. That's the only reason they are staying for a while. How are we ensuring that they love doing business here?
Yeah.
For instance, we have given them both government WAF, well, not both, all three, government WAF, KC, and Thar Green. They are going to upgrade those facilities, and they'll be using it. And we have said you can use it for as long as 25 years. Okay, so you stay, your business is protected. Use it for as long as 25 years. It's not an exclusive right. We did not give them, say, you develop it, it's yours, only you use it. No. They will have to develop it, but they also will allow competition to use it. That's clearly stated.
Right.
So those existing ferries, if they want to continue doing business, they can stay and use their existing ramps. These ferries that came, if you look at their sizes, they are a lot bigger than the ones we have. The draft they need, the depth of the water they need, is minimum 4 meters. So our available facilities cannot accommodate any of these ferries right now.
Right.
So we are going to build, the company is coming to build a ramp that goes into the water, at least 100 meters into the water. And this is prefabricated. They are right now making them in Turkey. They are going to bring them. These are hydraulic ramps. They move up and down according to the tide, but you will never notice, even you are standing up on top of them. That's the technology they are working on.
So that tells a lot about the 3 months period for them to come into operation.
Yes, exactly.
All right. William Saulabi, let me bring you in. First off, what does this mean for the transport sector, especially by sea?
Yeah, it means a lot. And then the other most important thing is that people have been crying down the movement of His Excellency the President. You know, traveling every week, every month, moving here and there. People have been crying about his frequent movement to other countries. But these are some of the results that we've started seeing, you know, from his frequent traveling, you know, when you talk about transportation, you know. So I think something has started happening within the transport sector. But I will tell you for free, there is still more, yet to be done. And I think that is the responsibility of the transport minister to ensure that some of the things that are supposed to be done by him actually put in place himself and his team. Because when you talk about transportation, yes, the sea transport, we've now seen some actions and all of that.
Yeah.
After 4 years, we're now seeing a boat here. It's not a brownie, I'm sure it's not a brownie boat, but whatever you may say, we have this standard boat. My only fear is going to be the cost, because most of those who are using these ferries moving from Freetown to Tagrin, you know, these are business people, these are low-earning people, and looking at the ferry is a classic ferry, so I'm worried in terms of cost, you know, because at the end of the day, we don't want to see a ferry here in Freetown just seeing people who are earning 10 or more millions per month using that ferry, and those who are supposed to actually benefit from the ferry using those canoes. At the end of the day, there's going to be still risk in terms of transportation, more especially for vulnerable people. So in the area of ferry, getting down to 5 years, we are seeing some progress by seeing what all of us have seen for the past days. But we still have challenges with road transportation, you know. And
Can I just quickly hold you on the issue of road transportation? Definitely something we would have to talk about, and perhaps also talk about air travel. I mean, move a bit to the aviation industry. But let me just quickly ask Adams. He's talking about the pricing formula. So what would determine the pricing? Is it going to be one that would bring both parties, say the government and the company that will be operating these ferries, sit on a table, make a decision, and make a decision that would reflect in the best interest of us, the poor people who use ferry every now and then to go to Lunge?
You are exactly right in that. They are a private enterprise.
Yeah.
They are going to be allowed to work as a private enterprise. But we have agreed with them that the pricing mechanism, we have to come at all times, sit together and agree on what the pricing should be. If you look inside, if you have toured these ferries, or if you have seen the pictures, in terms of the quality, they are way better than what Sea Coach or they are providing right now. We want to ensure that they maintain those quality. So because of that, we are not going to say, hey, so our unions are going to use these ferries for free. No, we are going to ensure that what Sierra unions pay, however, is quite affordable. We are talking, in fact, this is actually coming from the head of the Negma company itself. He told me directly that his heart bleeds when he sees Sea Coach asking people to pay $40 just to go across this water. So that should not happen. Remember, we are going to introduce a tier system. We have cars, like these two ferries that came, they are both vehicle ferries, combination of vehicle and passenger ferries.
Right.
2 more ferries are coming. I mean, probably I should not be leaking this, but I have just done that.
That's an exclusive here. Thank you.
2 more ferries are coming.
Yeah.
Those 2 ferries are exclusively passenger ferries. They will not be carrying vehicles. Yeah. These two ferries for now will be operating out of Government Wharf. When those passenger ferries come, they will be principally operating out of Kisi, where we have all the people that he is talking about will be traveling.
Us.
Yes. all of us. Yes. Yes.
And we don't really want to see the ferry services or sea transportation limited to Freetown. We don't really
let me just finish. Yeah. So when those ferries come, those passenger ferries, they are going to be equipped with areas like we used to have buses where even if you are a market woman, you can put your load down there, then go and sit in the same seat where the minister sits. That's what exactly we'll be doing there. Right. We are going to create spaces where the market women can put their baskets, put their loads, and then they will go into the ferry and share the same seats with whosoever is traveling. In dignity, that's what is going to happen there. The pricing, we are going to ensure that the pricing will not be exploitative of Sierra Leoneans.
What's government's commitment financially to bringing these ferries in country?
Zero. We did not put any money into coming here. All we did is to provide them the enabling environment. So you come, we'll ensure that you are able to do your business in an environment that will help you make some money, but also help us.
And the contract runs for 25 years?
Yes, it runs for 25 years.
All right. So William Salamin, you were talking about not just having these ferries to yes, and there are other crossing points across the country.
So many crossing points. If you go to Machu, people traveling to His Excellency's district.
Right.
You understand? People are traveling from Machu. People are traveling some other areas to Bond Island. We also need that sea transportation. Besides, there are still some other, communities that are having rivers, you know, not sea, but river. They also need transportation,
quality
more
boats,
especially when there is rain. You go to some certain communities in Pujehun, in the Bonds, and even part of the north. you hardly get people travel from one community to another because of the rainy season. The water becomes so high that you don't use canoe to even travel, you don't risk it. You know, so if we are talking about sea transportation or water transportation, we have to be very, very mindful that we have voters in some other part of the country, not just Freetown. Freetown is not Sierra Leone. So since the president is doing all it could, we also want the minister and his team to start planning for even the region or the district, wherever we have issues that has to do with water transportation. It's very key. Because if you go to those communities, I used to travel just last few days from now, I'm coming from the provinces. There are some certain areas, there is no way you can access some other communities. There is a total cutoff between July, August, and September, a total cutoff. And these are business communities. These are fishing, communities. People want to move from one area to another point. So since they've started in Freetown, we still have close to a year more for the new direction before we get to elections. And this is my political Bible. Yeah. I read this book every day before I get to bed. When I wake up in the morning, I look at it again. They've made a lot of promises with regards to general transportation. So I only hope and pray that they will not limit this water transportation just in Freetown.
So let's get to land transportation.
Yeah.
It's evidence that it's pretty much challenging. But in the last 7 or 8 years, we've had of situations where governments have made efforts to bring in buses in country to help cushion the effects. Now, we know there were 200 buses, saga around. We know this current regime also talked about buses and bringing in buses. Now, looking at those efforts that have been made, are they in any way impactful in the sector?
Well, for the free quality education, you've seen buses moving around for the children.
Right.
But even at that is not enough, because there are so many other children who are Sierra Leoneans who are supposed to benefit from bus services, but they are not having that services.
Right.
It's limited to actually government schools and more especially children. But when you talk about providing buses for education, it has to cut across from university down to nursery. And I think it's still not enough. The buses are still not enough, more especially for cities. They are not enough. You see, even during the time of COVID-19, you see, children standing in the limited buses we have. And my brother, you can't talk about transportation if you don't talk about road. I've been saying this with time without number, that even if we have a lot of buses in Freetown, when you look at the manifesto, when you talk about trying to pave drainages and all of that, trying to have a 4-lane drive across cities, there are still challenges. Like the road here coming from Waterloo to Toke was constructed by the late President Tijan Kaba. It stopped at Toke. Former President Kuruma took Godrich to Bobo. Now between number 2 and Toke, there is still a gap. If that road has been completed and then we have massive buses as stipulated in this manifesto, I will tell you for free, the issue of transportation, congestion in the city can be minimized. Because if I'm within Wilkinson Road, I want to get to Lumley, I have no business passing through the city center. I'll just drive between, Mambo, get to number 2, and then drive to Waterloo. I don't need to get to the city center. So road construction has to go together with the transportation. So even if transport is available, the buses are available in country, massive. If the roads are not constructed or are not completed, there is still going to be a challenge. So and even the buses
in essence, you're saying addressing the transport crisis has to take a multi-sectoral approach.
If you go now, just this morning, I've traveled between number 2 to the capital city. If you go around Bobo, you come to Hamilton area, there is serious problem with drainages. In fact, yesterday there was a massive accident within that particular area because of the drainages are full, the water flowing in the streets, So I sometimes confuse Why do we have SLRA? What are they doing? You know, they have to apply the spirit of freedom, if possible, on a daily basis, more especially during the rains. They have to travel and see. You have to save lives. Because if these streets are overflow with water, whenever there is rain, people are not clearing and having proper drainages within some certain community, you have some of these accidents going on. You know, this morning I asked, they said all of these guys, in fact, they were white guys, they were moved to the emergency hospital, you know. So we really need to move out of our comfort zone. After the rebel war, the Ebola, the COVID-19, whosoever that is sitting in any seat, as the president is also doing, traveling all over the world to ensure that we have some of these facilities. Sometimes you don't need to place money into some of these projects.
Let me quickly come in.
Transportation, my brother,
yes.
Transportation. The minister just has to move from his comfort zone. You travel out of Sierra Leone, you can make arrangements.
We'll talk about the minister and his competence shortly, but just before then, you were talking about the safety of the roads.
Yeah.
Now, we know evidently there is the Sierra Leone Road Safety Authority charged with that responsibility.
Road SLRA.
SLRSC is charged with responsibility of safety. Now, but whilst we hold these institutions accountable, now you talk about gutters overflowing, causing flash floods across the city. You walk across when, I mean, it is raining, you walk across Freetown, you see people taking their rubbish, I mean, just dumping them in the gutters, and at the end of the day, but we still come back. We put so much pressure on government. Then how then do we take our civic responsibilities into consideration when we mount these campaigns?
That is why I used to say the problem of Sierra Leone, it's all of us. We are all responsible in one way or the other. Why we place blame on government sometimes is because they have the constitution, they have the mandate. We have there is every law in America and UK, we have them here in Sierra Leone. It's a matter of implementation. If somebody is there throwing filth into the gutter and that person has been arrested, a member of parliament or a councillor does not have to come and say, no, I get interest in this matter. You know, when the police are doing their job or the Freetown City Council, you see people in high places coming that have interest in this matter just because that person is a voter or he has to vote when there is election. You know, we have to move all of it. We have to implement the law to the latter. You know, so that is why the blame sometimes goes to the government. We know we are all responsible. If you're responsible, somebody is going to buy Pega Park or Stabia 10 or 20,000 per pint, and then you cannot pay for a small trash within your household to those guys who are using clean saloon and all the rest of it, then you are not a responsible citizen. So we all have a role to play, but the government has to take the lead. One, some of those drainages are even need to be expanded. Like the Samagota has been there over 40 years. There is need for rehabilitation. There is some people have already constructed houses on top of the Samagota. Who do we blame for that? It's the government, you know, because they are seeing some of these things. You cannot have a particular infrastructure for 30 or more years. After a while, you don't modify it. When you look at the population and all of that. When that Samagota was constructed, the population now in Freetown, you know, has 3 or 4 times double. So you need to look at that Sambagota and do something to that Sambagota. Otherwise, there's going to be
does the Ministry of Transport and Aviation, does it have the competent leadership to actually address the crisis in the transport sector?
For me personally, I have a problem with the minister. I have told him...
Personal problem?
No, personally, because I'm not seeing much in the area of transportation. He has to come from his comfort zone. You know, the last time I told him at his conference hall that, Mr. Minister, we are talking about COVID-19, don't touch, social distance and all the rest of it. You have to move from this of your comfort zone. You go to Calbar Town and then travel with the buses, the podas come to Upgon and see the overloading. While we are on television causing noise about social distance and all the rest of it, people are doing what they want to do. So as a minister, before you take action, you have to visit the scene and get the first-hand information, not from a director or a manager or a permanent secretary. Go for yourself and see. By so doing, you can be able to take appropriate action.
So you're not seeing that leadership?
That is one. The other thing again, as I said earlier on, my brother is talking about, I mean, the sea transportation that is here. You not spend a kobo. You understand? That is transportation has been here. They only have to monitor and create the enabling environment for those who are coming with the business. It can also go for buses. I will tell you for free. If the minister move from Sierra Leone and have an agreement with some certain country, you will see buses in Freetown. You didn't forget about transport crisis. Those who are even doing private transport,
that will come and do business.
I will tell you for free, they are there in their thousands, their numbers. You just need to move and get some arrangement. Before moving, you need to, in fact, there is no need to study. Sometimes I tell people you are wasting money on doing feasibility study, doing research. It's a waste of money. Can you tell me that the Freetown does not know exactly? People of Freetown, you don't know what Freetown needs in terms of water, in terms of road? Do you need to do a research? We need to redo all of the roads in Freetown. There is water problem. There is still, yes, the government is doing well for the past weeks or days. We've seen constant electricity, but there is more to be done in terms of electricity. We need street lights. We've seen vehicles moving with fog light at night because there is no street light. And at the end of the day, they are disturbing the other coming vehicle, you know, on the other traffic. These are all problems. These are all social problems, you know. We have to move from our comfort zone. I have to travel under the rain this morning, more than 15 miles for myself to be here just to talk about transport issue. We have to move from our comfort zone to ensure that we rescue, we protect the life of people. I have just come out with a press release last week talking about road crashes. You understand? Road crashes with the Road Safety Authority. That there is need for us to have now a department at Road Safety Authority that can take care of road crashes, you know, in the area of paying compensation. We have started the advocacy to engage the insurance company for them to be able to, whenever I pay, this money is not coming from their pockets. Whenever I pay for my insurance, 10% of that money should be cut off immediately and transferred to a unit at SLISA for them to have and manage that money. You know, whenever there's road crash, you compensate people.
That's a different campaign.
Let me only
These
are all under transportation. That's why I'm bringing some of these
Yes, I understand that. Let me bring in Adams.
Yes, so
the challenges in land transportation, I mean, are really, really worrisome. Was it on Monday? I had just 50 Leone in my pocket. I mean, when I get a bike, come to work, and feed during the day. But unfortunately, I expended about 40 Leone coming from where I stay to work. And I was left with, and on my way, you see a lot of people struggling to onboard these buses. I mean, countless people in queues just running because of the lack of adequate buses to just transport people across. If you go to the parking spots, government parking spot where people are transported to the provinces, you miss a bus that is scheduled for 9 a.m., you have to go and come the other day for you to travel to either whether it's Bo, whether it's Kenema, whether it's... So how then do we address these challenges?
Yeah, that's a good question. I am going to address those, but I just think in the water transportation, he said a few things where I think that I should be able to respond to. So I want to respond to that. He was talking about that water transportation should not be limited to Freetown. We are aware that it should not be limited to Freetown. Right. We have written a project already in the ministry in our ministry for coastline transportation starting from Waterloo that terminates in Waterloo. So go around, start from Waterloo to Waterloo. We have these projects. We are seeking, just like we did in this case, we are seeking potential investors in that. We have had credible interested parties that are interested in providing that service. And we are in negotiations with that. So we have not forgotten about that. Also, we know that there are provincial towns that also need water transportation. In that, the president's hometown you called, the Sierra Leone Maritime Administration is actually in the process of constructing a jetty there. A real jetty comparable to what we have at Kisi or those things.
We are talking about 4 years down the line.
No,
and you have a commitment for 5 years.
Yeah. So I'm talking about...
if you are constructing the jetty, then I'm worried when are you going to come with the ferries?
No, I am not going into the political aspect. I'm a technical advisor. I want to stay in that. I want to stay in that. I want to stay there. Okay, please allow me. Yes. So When we are talking about a form of transportation, you said you don't have to conduct feasibility studies. You don't have, no, on the contrary, you have to. How can I go to an investor and say, come provide this? Then the investor asks me, how many people are traveling there? I don't know. What's the cost of going there? I don't know. How many minutes can a bus take in the traffic if I'm going from one end to another? I don't know. So you need those studies.
I will tell you for free. If you ask Blacker, Blacker will tell you.
You would have your time. Let him continue. Go ahead.
He won't allow me. Still on the water transportation in the provincial towns, just a few years ago, 2 years ago, the Somali Maritime Administration again supplied safety gears to all those local transportation service providers. I'm talking about vest, safety vest, I'm talking about helmets, I'm talking about boots. They actually supply them because they want those forms of transportation to be safer as well. Before this time, there were quite a few accidents there. We have seen that there is an immediate impact of this when Maritime did this actually. Now I'll come to the land transportation. Absolutely, it's right. You are right. There are problems in Freetown. And it's not just coming from the lack of buses. Like he said, it's coming from several places. We are suboptimally using our roads. Besides the fact that we have capacity issues, we are also not using the roads in the right way. If we can just, for instance, address the way we use our roads, I am pretty sure we can improve our traffic, the time we spend in traffic by up to 20%. If we can just remove the number of people, for instance, in Lumley, that have encroached on the roads, a 4-lane road they have reduced to, I would say, 1 lane. One single lanes are taken on both sides, and even the other lane is like they are encroaching upon. If we can just remove those people, or if those people can just get themselves out of there, we can improve the traffic by more than 20%. So the problem is not just the lack of...
We can only hope for that after elections. I mean,
we want to,
them off the streets.
specifically or for Lumley, I will assure you that we are going to address that before elections.
No, you don't have to talk about. You don't have to talk about. You don't have to talk about after elections.
You have to
we
give
are
me
looking
time.
at the manifesto.
We'll come
after
to
elections.
I'll come to you with the political question.
Yes,
Let
exactly.
him go on.
Yes, exactly. For that particular area and so many other intersections, I will assure you that before elections, that's going to be solved. What the Transport Ministry is doing is this. You don't just go and ask people, say, get out of this place, without providing places where they should go. At that specific Lumley roundabout, the Transport Ministry through the World Bank is constructing a market. If you go there, you can see the construction going on at the back. It's constructing a market and a park. So we are going to ask those people, move from here because we want the traffic to be flowing, but there is an alternative for you. Go over there and sit there. On the buses specifically, the question you asked.
Yes.
What we did with the ferry is a pilot. Our objective within the ministry, what we did here is a pilot. We want to replicate that in all forms of transportation. That is, we want to get government out of providing the services, government just stays as a regulator, and encourage private people to come and provide these services. We are in the process of transforming the RTC, which used to, they are now providing the world services. We are transforming them into a regulator of public transportation. What they are going to be doing is they define the routes. Say from here to here is one route, here to here is one route. When any public transportation comes, you register on a specific route and you have license to operate on that route, that only route. The advantages there is they will ensure that no route is overused and no route is underserved. Because if you allow just the public transport providers to operate like that, they are going to go to where the demand is heavy.
Are these immediate plans?
Yes. Right now, this particular bill has passed in cabinet. We are about taking it to Parliament. After that, yes. The ministry just 2 weeks ago signed a contract for 50 buses already. There is negotiation going on right now for another 100 buses. I'll assure you that before the next election, there will be like 108. Please.
Go ahead.
There will be
president long ago.
I am not talking on the political aspect. I told you. There will be at least 180 buses. However, the emphasis is not on the buses.
Do we already have existing buses that 180 buses would, I mean,
On the government side,
on the government side?
On the government side, we have buses, but those buses are all on life support. They are not buses that we can...
Including the 200, the previous government?
I think the 200 previous buses that we are bought, I think about 10 or about that are being used right now.
Wow.
The rest are not in use. Okay. So for those buses we are talking about, this is the reason why those buses that we are buying, they are not going to be managed by RTC anymore. The RTC will become the authority that will regulate them. We are inviting private people to come and manage this.
Government will buy the buses?
For this 50, the project, the IRON project, which is funded by the World Bank, is buying them. But going forward, the private people that we are inviting to come will be buying their own buses.
And run them?
And run them, yes, exactly.
Okay.
Just a few weeks ago, we had a meeting with another Turkish company that actually, this is what they do. They provide bus services in Istanbul. They have come, they have actually driven through the city, and they have seen the routes that we want to
Turkey appears to be a reliable partner in the development of Sierra Leone, right?
It's becoming that right now.
Many of our Facebook followers have been sending their comments or contributions to the show. Let me just take a few of them. Guys, you would have to understand with me that I cannot go through all the messages. The grant is saying this July alone, the kind of human rights violation the BO-led government has committed is unimaginable. Half of the capital is enjoying 24 hours electricity, an ultra-modern engineering building at FBC, and now 2 new ferries. Chai, President BO, you too much. All right. Saul, I mean, don't you think our government is capable to afford a ferry for its citizens without signing any agreement with Turkish transport companies, or government is not capable of affording ferries at this moment? Swissman is asking. Businesswomen to abandon their goods to go and sit somewhere. What security features have you put in place in those ferries? That's a question from Eddie. I'll take at most 5 more questions. Molai Wabo Kamara is saying, I don't know why. Question about 25 years contract signed by government. I don't know why Samuel Wise is not asking much question about a 25 years contract signed by government for us to know much about the details of the contract and if the contract went to parliament before the government signed the contract. But I think the journalist is avoiding it on purpose, and it's a pity for a journalist to deliberately not want to ask our politicians critical questions. Thank you very much, Molai. My producer is listening, so I think they can incorporate you into the production team. But thank God you've asked the question. Adam would respond to it. Ronald Georgetown is saying, because of the weak Leone and inflation, it is difficult for private investors to come in when the government can manage its resources by forcibly stopping corruption on its various sectors like fishing, mining, which can bring in millions of dollars in strengthening the Leone. Then investors would have confidence to come in because of an economic prudence. Otherwise, it's business as usual. And Wells is saying, Mr. Studio Guest, talking about buses, what's happened to those Logos Comas buses, Logos Comas buses from China? Mr. Cole, have you arranged your own little drainage around your residence, especially the cover you cross to come to the main street, sir? Pastor Philip Fode Yoko. So many messages this morning. Madam, it's 61 years and continuing the cup. And counting the cup has been half empty due to lack of prudence and integrity for the people, and our regional neighbors have left us way behind in every way in terms of development and infrastructure. We should not be talking about electricity and water supply at this stage, let alone about jobs, housing, health, or education for all, but competing with our continental partners and the world. However, Rome was not built in a day, but our successive governments have done their people proud, but only themselves and their cronies. Finally, with these 2 new or used ferries in place, is government going to abandon the proposed Lunge Bridge? All right, that's a question there. I mean, there are questions for you. So I would want to go with my online producer, the question about whether the agreement, was taken to Parliament and all of that.
So there are quite a few good questions. They are all legitimate questions, right, and I'll answer them as best as I can. This question often comes when it's like public-private partnership. If you look most people that ask these questions actually do it in genuine ignorance. They do not really know our laws. If you read our PPP laws, there is no, Parliament is not mentioned anywhere in there. You don't have to take anything to Parliament. This was taken to Cabinet. It was approved by Cabinet. However, since they have asked, we can take it to Parliament if our NEGMA, our investors, find comfort in that. That's not a problem. We can easily take it there. But I'm just saying that our laws, the Sierra Leone laws, both the PPP laws, the privatization laws, you are not, especially PPP law, you are not required to take any PPP agreement to Parliament. No, there is no statement that you the entire law, no mention of Parliament there at all. Okay, so that's the answer to that. The other question was, have you looked into the contract details of this 25 year? What are the details in there? I can tell you all the details in there. They will still provide minimum 4 ferries, minimum 4 ferries connecting this part, the south side of Freetown to the north side, across the water. That's one detail. Other detail is they will never increase the price without us. We will sit together and approve. That's another.
Is there a formula to increase or reduce? Is there a formula?
Reduce. So they will never change.
Okay.
They will never change it. We have to come together and do it. For every dollar they raise, the country will get something. Even though we have not spent anything, they are going to spend their own money. And the jetty they are developing is not exclusively used. It's going to be open to any other person that wants to use it. But yes, still we have a revenue sharing, not profit sharing, which companies can manipulate, but revenue sharing agreement with them. So those are the details. There is nothing else hidden in that contract. It's clear. If anybody wants me to display it, I'll display it. The only thing I fear is the confidentiality clause that is stated in there. That's the only thing. What's the other question? There are quite a few questions.
There are questions around whether or not, I think you've pretty much answered the most critical questions.
If the boat thing, whether the Lunge Bridge is still going to be constructed or whatever. Somebody made that question.
I don't know if that question is for you.
No, I can answer that. No, I can answer that. I'm not going to answer saying, what I am aware of is that the government or the president is still committed, as stated in his manifesto, into looking, it is still committed to looking into the possibility of having a bridge. That is clearly what's stated in the manifesto. People misrepresent the manifesto. And I have never read the manifesto until this morning when my friend here brought it up to me. Said, this is what is stated in your manifesto. I said, oh, thank God.
I don't think the issue about bridge is actually in the manifesto. It was just a commitment.
Yeah, he said, I make a commitment that I will look into the possibility of having. However, even if we start constructing a bridge today, it will take a minimum 3 to 5 years. We will still need transportation from here to Leone and back.
We will get the presidential advice on infrastructure.
Exactly.
Because we've had conversations around the construction of that bridge, the initial budget, when it was also reviewed, and private contractors secured, to get all of it. And of course, there was also a date. Dates set for its launch, but of course it did not happen. So we'd have to get the presidential advice on infrastructure on that.
Yeah, the only thing about the bridge, I'm still convinced that His Excellency still have a strong commitment with regards to the Leone Bridge. It's not in the manifesto. Yeah, this is just a commitment by His Excellency the President, and I know he is really a talk and do president, not like some ministers. Some ministers are not talk and do. But for the presidency, is actually a talk and do. Whatever he commits himself to, it cannot be 100%.
What are the ministers that are not talk and do?
Pardon?
What are the ministers that are not talk and do?
Like the transport thing. Look here, we are talking here about
Let me just respond
increased public. They are saying they are increased public busing service to all areas. All areas. 18 hours services per day. 18 hours. Where are the buses?
So let me
Before we talk about the 18 hours.
Let me just address that.
You understand? So we still have problem with some ministers. I will tell you for free. If you open the phone line, people will call and tell you this minister is performing, this other minister is not performing. So those who are not performing, they are not talk and do. But those who are performing, definitely, we name them as talk and do. And not just ministers. We have directors, we have managers who are not actually doing what they are supposed to do.
Okay. Let me just respond to this one. let me just
We
respond
have
to
2
this
minutes
one.
to close.
Yeah,
Yes.
I've just responded to this one. The Ministry of Transport is actually less of a talk and more of a do. The Ministry of Transport is doing a lot more compared to several ministries.
Really?
The only problem with the Ministry of Transport is that we are not going out there to talk about what we are doing. We did not talk about this ferry issue like other ministries
No, but you
blew
have
out
to.
until they arrived here.
No, but you
right
have
now,
to.
I am reading a contract. Right now, as we talk, I am reading a contract which probably will sign very soon that we put the green, white, and blue back in the air. We are bringing the national airline again, and it will be connecting here to UK, but it will not be limited to that. We will have local flights and regional flights, and as well as within the
My
MRU.
brother, we are talking about time here.
No,
We
I'm
are
just
talking
saying,
about
I'm
time.
just- we are
And I will
doing
tell
a-
you for free,
we
there are so many challenges when it comes to transportation. This is just something clear.
We have started.
It's just
he
clear.
was talking about street
if
lighting.
we have buses here in Freetown, there's no we'll be talking even about Okada moving across the city, Keke moving across the city. We don't have just a day sit down strike by the transport owners. Freetown was like a cemetery. Nothing.
Thank you
If
very
we're
much,
having
gentlemen.
government buses that day, you don't even care about those who are talking
Thank
about
you very
strike.
much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having both of you here this morning.